What's going on, everyone? Welcome back to my channel. This is Living to Learn. I want to thank you so much for taking the time out of your day, out of your life to check out this video, listen to what I have to say, and I hope that you'll be able to take something away from it that's helpful. Perhaps something that you hadn't thought of before, something thought-provoking, or maybe it'll just allow you to see your situation or a situation differently. And before I get started, I just want to mention, as I always do in the description of my videos, there are 3 opportunities to invest financially in my channel. You don't have to do that, but it is something that helps me continue to make content, helps me continue on with what I'm doing and be consistent. And then you have my TikTok and Instagram handles at Live to Learn Coaching. There's where you can reach out to me directly, send me a message, say hi. Give me some feedback, give me some ideas. Maybe there's something you want me to cover or talk about. I'd love to hear from you. And for those of you who have made that extra step, as I was mentioning previously, in regards to investing financially in my channel, I just want to say thank you. It means a lot. But at the very least, if you can subscribe to my channel, if you can share this video with someone you think would benefit from it, if you could leave me a comment, that would be much appreciated. That's plenty of support right there. So let's get started. We are in the final part 3 of our 3-part series on isolation, right? How do I overcome this feeling of isolation? We've been talking about that. We've been talking about signs to look for. We've been talking about emotions that we experience, things that we will experience during a time of isolation, during a season, or as we're stepping into a place of feeling isolated. And it can be from a number of different things. And as I stated, I think it was the last video or the one before, the idea of being alone, the idea of isolation is not bad in itself if it's something that you are intending to do. However, if it's just something that has come upon us from something happening in our lives, it's just kind of taking us off of our taking us off of our normal path, right? We're generally not operating very well when we are in a time of emotional distress, when we are in a time of feeling isolated, feeling like it's just us, right? Even if there's a lot of people around, even if we're not technically, realistically alone, that's what being isolated, that's what the state of isolation can do for us. So today I want to talk about 3 things that we can do in response. I want to talk about how we can help ourselves, and more importantly, or not more importantly, but just as important, why these things are necessary and what they represent in regards to us getting out of a state of isolation. So we're isolated, right? Let's say you're feeling isolated, someone you know. Again, this is why I like anybody who has an opportunity to share the video with someone. You never know. Somebody might need to see something like this. They might need to hear it the way I'm explaining it. But if we find ourselves feeling isolated, if we find ourselves in that space, first things first, we have to go ahead and acknowledge those feelings. We've got to recognize, we've got to accept that the feeling of isolation, it's valid and it's common. Now, something personal that I can relate to. A lot of times, I think as men, right, especially men, I'm talking to my men right now, we don't have the healthiest relationship with words like feelings and emotions. For some of us, that's not necessarily something that we want to associate with ourselves. We want to see ourselves as men as being strong, as being providers, as being a foundation. And I agree with that. I think as men, that's part of who we are, of who we should be. Especially if you're a father. You're responsible for little ones. So yes, we do need to be strong. We do need to be resilient. But as human beings, we are endowed with a range of emotions and feelings. And as human beings, we have a right to those things. We don't have a right to be ruled by them. We don't have a right to be dragged along away from our purpose, but we have a right to them. It doesn't make us less of a man to say, I'm in a tough spot right now. It's going to be more difficult for some of us versus others based on how we were raised and what examples of men we saw. So for my guys out there, I just want to give you permission, man to man, that it's okay to recognize these feelings. It's okay to acknowledge that they are valid, that they are common. We are not the only ones, and we don't have to hide it just because we're men. And we don't have to hide it just because we're confident or strong people. That goes for women. That goes for, my non-binary folks, whatever gender you associate with. As a person who wants to carry themselves confidently, with strength, who wants to be confident, who wants others to see them as confident, that doesn't take away from that. This is just being human. To recognize that this is valid and it's common. Acknowledge the feelings. Sit with your feelings without judgment. I learned something really important. I went to this conference. I've mentioned this in other videos as well. I heard the speaker. We talked about breath work. I learned a lot about breath work. It's some really amazing stuff. One thing he said was this. He goes, what I try to practice now is whenever something irritates me, whenever something triggers me, whenever something, causes some kind of an emotional conflict, right? Something happens and it brings on this feeling or certain emotion. He goes, I try to grab a hold of it. And then I try to follow it from where it came from. And essentially that's what you're doing here when you're sitting with your feelings without judgment. You're saying, hold on, something's happening here. Let me get set. Let me take a look at this. Let me try to get to the bottom of it. Because, listen, if we can sit there with no judgment, rather than wasting that energy on judging ourselves, we can use that energy to try to get to the bottom of why it is that we're even feeling the way that we are. Now, on surface level, it might be, I had to find a new career or I moved to a new city, right? That's surface. But what did that entail? Why did that cause this? And when we sit with ourselves, when we sit with our feelings without judgment, that gives us an opportunity to find out. Okay? So acknowledge the feeling. It's okay. Feeling isolated, feeling alone, feeling like you're the only one going through it right now. It's valid. And believe it or not, it's common. The second thing, positive self-talk. I know I've done videos on positive self-talk. I know I've broken it down so many times, and I will continue to do that because that is a part of what a life coach does. That is a part of what somebody who wants to maintain a positive outlook on life, what we have to do. We have to have that positive self-talk. We have to replace negative thoughts with supportive messaging. And just in case you don't know who that messaging is for, it's for us. It's for you. We've got to challenge those negative thoughts. Now, I want to give you an example of why negative self-talk is so dangerous and why it's a waste of time. It's a waste of energy. Years ago, and this is years ago, right? I was playing basketball. I was on the basketball team. There used to be this steep hill, right? It was a steep hill. And we would run up the hill as a team, for conditioning, get our wind up, get our strength up. We didn't do it all the time, but we would do it. And one time, I remember a group of guys thought it would be a good idea to bring along one of those big Sparklets water jugs, right? Those 5-gallon jugs that, you'll see them like in an office building, or people have them in their homes too. And, the water truck will come and deliver it, and it's super heavy. Now, we're already running up this super steep incline. These guys wanted to challenge themselves even more, so they there's a group of guys, they're passing as they're running, right? We're all running uphill. They're passing this water jug to each other. And I remember this one guy, he went to take it from another guy, lowered his shoulder to get under it. And he did it right, but this thing's heavy, right? And so he takes it, and as soon as he takes it, he's like, it started running straight, he's starting to run sideways, right? Because it's heavy. And it's already hard enough for us to run up this hill. So what I'm getting at is that's kind of what negative self-talk is. When you're going through something like being in a state of isolation where you're already dealing with it, your mental health is already being affected. Being negative to ourselves, speaking negatively to ourselves is like what my buddies were doing with that water jug. You're making a difficult situation even more difficult. And that is, that's counterproductive. So challenge those thoughts. Let me give you an example. You want to go from saying something like, I'm all alone, nobody cares, right? Because that'll make sense to us when we're going through something like this. I'm all alone, nobody cares. We want to go from there to, I may feel alone right now, but I am worthy of connection and support. Do you see what I did there? I acknowledged it. I didn't deny it. Positive self-talk doesn't mean denial. I acknowledged it. Yeah, I may feel lonely right now. I do. I'm going through it right now. However, I am worthy. You are worthy. That means you have enough worth to be able to say, I deserve connection and support. That's just an example, okay? Challenge the negativity, replace it with positive self-talk. Lastly, engage in self-care, whatever that looks like for you. I'm not even going to get into it because that's going to be different for so many people. And I mean even things that some people won't approve of, other people don't approve of. I don't mean hurting somebody, okay? We're not that. That's not self-care. That's being abusive. That's being a horrible individual. But some of us will choose methods of self-care that other people wouldn't necessarily go for. That's not their decision. That's your decision. That's my decision. Okay? When you take the time to care for yourself, you send a message. And this is what the message is saying. It says that you are important, I'm important, and deserve attention. Again, going back to us as men, right? We take pride in like not showing emotion. We take pride in just saying, man, I'm just gonna hold it all in, and no one's gonna have to deal with it but me. That sounds heroic, but it can be very self-destructive. We're trying to get better here, not worse. So when we decide that, hey, I'm gonna take care of myself, whatever that looks like for you, you're sending yourself an important message. Hey, listen, I'm important. I am important, and I deserve. See, some of us are gonna have a hard time telling ourselves we deserve anything, but I want to give you permission to tell yourself, I deserve attention. Now, what are all these three things? What do they have to do with this? And this is where I want to wrap up this video. Acknowledge your feelings, positive self-talk, engage in self-care. What do they have in common? Okay, I'm going to try to give you another basketball story, but this is more of an analogy, and I'm hopefully going to make it plain and simple enough so that those of you who don't even watch basketball or care about basketball will get it. In the game of basketball, the only time a player can move is when they are dribbling the basketball. Okay, bouncing the ball up and down off the floor as we move. Okay, that's part of the game. Those are the rules. You cannot move unless you're bouncing the basketball. Now, once you stop or pick up your dribble, you have two choices. You have two options. You can either shoot the ball or you can pass it. That's it. You can't start dribbling again. That's a rules violation. It's a turnover. You'll give the other team the ball. You can't move without dribbling. That's against the rules. So when you stop dribbling in basketball, you've got two choices. You can pass or you can shoot. And that is essentially what these things are for us. In our state of isolation, in our time of feeling lonely, acknowledging our feelings, messaging, giving ourselves that positive self-talk, engaging in self-care, that is essentially us saying, okay, I'm going to stop. I'm going to stop. I'm going to get set here, and I'm going to say, and I'm going to think about, and I'm going to find out, what are my options? What do I need to do in response? What can I do with this? Because in our society, our modern society, our fast-moving society, it wants us to figure it out. And while I can respect that, that doesn't necessarily leave us space to be able to get set and identify what our options are, what we can do about the situation that we are currently in. So in regards to feeling or being in a state of isolation, that's what these three things represent. They're not just helpful tips, but it's a way for us to slow down the process, slow down the mind, slow down the situation so we could really observe it and we can really identify it for what it is. And that's going to help us decide on what we need to do next. So I hope this has been helpful. I hope the series has been helpful. If you haven't watched the other videos, please go back and watch them. I give you permission to do so. You don't need my permission to watch any of my videos. Check them out. Let me know what you think. Leave a comment, subscribe if you haven't already, and like I said, share these videos with someone you think would benefit from them. I do appreciate you watching, and have a great day.